Molly is from the Trinity. And she writes in a piece in Vanity Fair entitled, Republicans Own the IVF Mess. And you write, Molly, in part this. One of the ways Donald Trump won in 2016 was by empowering the far-right Republican base. Trump opened a Pandora's box, and Republicans are scrambling to shut it ahead of November. Unfortunately for Republicans, they've forgotten how to even pretend to be normal. IVF is a dumb hill for Republicans to die on, but it's a great example of just how hard it is to put the toothpaste back in the tube when you've spent years appeasing evangelicals and rejecting science. It's only a matter of time before this fetal personhood challenge comes back, and with it, a legal challenge to IUDs and morning after pills and maybe even birth control pills. Once you go down the road of religious zealotry, there is no easy off-ramp. Trump may have had some good political instincts, but this could be the one that cripples the Republican Party in the end. And we go back to the election in Virginia. We go back to midterms. Women will turn out, not just women, men will turn out on this issue of losing 50 years of rights.
Yeah. It's this, they put themselves, I mean, the idea, almost no one in this country believes that 5 frozen cells are a person.
That you have to keep frozen.
Right, that you have to keep frozen, and they're 5 cells, that's a person. I mean, a very small section of this country believes that to be true. So you've set yourself up for a disaster. And look, Republicans control one branch, barely, and the person they put in charge of it was Mike Johnson, a guy who has, hours and hours of religious zealotry on tape. Right? They could have picked Tom Emmer. They could have picked someone who read as a Paul Ryan, but instead they went with Trump's preferred candidate. And we've seen this again and again. Trump is a terrible candidate picker, right? And he has this love affair with the far right. So they've really set themselves up. And IVF is wildly popular. And birth control, as well it should be, is also popular. So they are setting themselves up with a real problem.
Yeah.
So, Molly, something like 2% of American babies are born through IVF. I'm sure half of them are Democrats and half of them are Republicans. They are not uniquely Democrats. Spell out what the situation is now with the other states that are looking at limiting, because it's not just Alabama. There are, some 10 other states? And then those 3 states, Texas, Louisiana, Missouri, who are also looking at trying to curb IUDs and the morning after pill. Where do all of those states stand? And in the ruling after Alabama and the pushback from Republicans against that, could those states now decide, okay, actually, you know what, that was a bridge too far and we're going to back away from this? Or are they pushing ahead?
Yeah, so Alabama actually did do legislation that said, that said you are not going to face manslaughter charges if you destroy a 5-celled embryo, which, congratulations to Alabama. I mean, talk about, a very, lame victory. So, people may be able to continue IVF in the state of Alabama, but think about how crazy this is. I mean, Mike Pence had his kids through IVF. This is not a person who's a wild leftist, Mike Pence. So the fact that we're even here shows what trouble Republicans are in. And look, there are going to be a lot of states, there are going to be a lot of challenges. But this fetal personhood, which really should be called embryonic personhood, is part of these heartbeat bills, which again, these, are multi-celled, frozen organisms, not necessarily. The idea that this is a child is wild stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and let me just say, Mika, just a little Southern Baptist programming note here. There's nothing wrong with Mike Johnson had religious studies or what. Nothing wrong with that. As we've talked about. My parents took me to church 2, 3, 4 nights a week. It didn't take. I know what you're saying. It didn't take. But a lot of it did. And the thing is, it's not that Mike Johnson is I think some holy, some holy example who is guided by the Bible. First of all, he got to power based on the biggest lie in recent American history. So Jesus didn't get him there. The lie did. But there's also, again, this bears repeating because of the self-righteousness of so many on the far Trump right. They've invented a religion. It's Christian nationalism. They've invented a religion. And it keeps getting more extreme every week. IVF now is, I guess, the devil's playhouse. Mike Pence had kids through IVF. So now what? Is he a heretic, or is he? Are they gonna hang him? They wanted to. Is his wife a witch? Are they gonna have witch trials now? I will say this again, and let those who have ears to hear. When I was in high school, the Southern Baptist Convention was pro-choice. In fact, they were pro-choice from the time of Jesus through the time the Beatles broke up. But wait, there's more. Not only through the time the Beatles broke up were these Protestant denominations pro-choice, they were pro-choice through the time the Eagles broke up. Yes, through the long run. All right? Through the long run. We can go the distance if our heart, you know the song. Think about that for a second as they're waving their Bibles in your face and telling you that you are insufficiently Christian because you don't believe what Jerry Falwell, Richard Viguerie, and Paul Weyrich decided, please stay with me, decided in 1979 they had to do to beat a Democratic president who happened to be Southern Baptist. They couldn't say he was insufficiently Christian because he taught Sunday school every Sunday, basically. And he was a good and decent man. So what did they do? Stay with me. I know you don't want to hear it out there, but stay with me because it is the truth. They invented the issue of abortion as a religion, not just as a political issue. But Jerry Falwell, Richard Viguerie, a Republican operative, and Paul Weyrich, a direct mail specialist, Republican, they said, we're going to create abortion not just as a political issue, we're going to make it a religious issue. And by making it a religious issue, again, the long run had already been released by the Eagles. They had broken up. They said, Elvis Costello's My Aim Is True had already been out 3 years. They decided at this point, people, by the way, at this point, had already thrown away their leisure suits and their pet rocks. This is how far removed from the birth of Jesus Christ this was. No, chia pets were people still have their chia pets.
Yeah.
Still with us now, by the way. But they decided we're going to make abortion a religious issue. And that way, Jimmy Carter can take votes from conservative Catholics and working class Protestants. That's what they figured out. And now you fast forward all these years later, and you talk to most of my friends, they will tell you, oh, yeah, abortion, that's a religious issue. That's like you know what it's like? It's like the death penalty is what it's like, actually. You read the Bible, and your view of the Bible can inform you on these issues. But the fact, Mika, that they now are saying not only is abortion a religious issue and you're going to hell if you're pro-choice. I wonder about my mom and my grandmom and my dad and people who went to church for week after week after week after my grandmom. I mean, this would be quite a shock to her that she was insufficiently Christian when she worshiped and prayed and lived one of the most devout lives ever. This would be a real shock that since she was in the Southern Baptist Convention, she's going to hell because the Southern Baptist Convention was pro-choice. But Now, it's gotten even more extreme, as these things do.
Yeah.
And so now abortion is banned. If your 10-year-old girl is raped by an illegal immigrant and you don't want your 10-year-old girl to have to carry the illegal immigrant's baby to term, you don't want the state to force your 10-year-old girl to have a baby, there are people who think you're going to hell. Listen, I wouldn't want to be standing in front of Jesus, like at the end of my life, answering for what I did to that 10-year-old girl, forcing her and her parents to flee the state because of some religious precept that was created in 1980 in the Protestant church by Jerry Falwell, Richard Viguerie, and Paul Weyrich. And now they come for IVF. Mm-hmm. Why are we surprised? Is anybody surprised? Because when they took the constitutional right for a woman to choose away from women for the first time in 50 years, they warned us. Clarence Thomas warned us. Mm-hmm. He said, now that we've looked at this, we need to look at interracial marriages. We need, oh wait, no, he didn't say that. We need to look at contraception. We need to look at marriage equality. We need to look, and he went down the list. Yeah. Why are we surprised? And for you people out there who think that it is going to end here, you are dreaming.
Yeah.
Because now what they call Christian nationalism has nothing to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we have seen through history, Reverend Al, people drunk with power and using religion for political power, it always ends badly.